Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere colder than any winter you've ever known. Somewhere darker than the deepest forest. Somewhere older than memory itself. You're not quite human yet. In fact, you're not even you in the modern sense. You're smaller, furrier. You don't speak, or cook, or build, but you feel, you cling. And right now, you're holding tight to a high branch as the wind begins to carry a chill that doesn't belong. This place feels like forever. A lush, endless forest blankets the earth, thick with buzzing insects, blooming flowers, and the musky scent of ripening fruit. Your tiny hands are calloused from swinging through branches, your nose twitches with the scent of figs, and your belly is round from a steady diet of sweetness. Life is good, in that slow, instinctual way. No deadlines, no emails, just sunshine and the warmth of your troops' bodies curled beside you each night. But tonight feels off. The air is cooler than it should be. Not cold exactly, just enough to make you shiver and puff your fur out. You reach for your favorite fig, only to find it shriveled, brown, clinging to the branch like a dried memory. That branch, too, has fewer leaves than usual. You blink, you sniff. A rustle nearby suggests your troop is restless. You hear them chattering, uneasy, uncertain. Something has changed. You don't know it yet, but this is the Eocene-Oligocene transition. It's around 34 million years ago, and the world you were born into is beginning to vanish. You are a tree-dwelling primate living in a greenhouse Earth, a place so warm that crocodiles once lounged near the poles. But now, silently, something is shifting. Far to the south, a vast and icy landmass, Antarctica, is drifting. A sliver of water, the Drake Passage, has opened between it and South America. You don't know about tectonic plates or ocean currents, but you feel the result. That sliver of water becomes a gate, and through it rushes a mighty new current, the Antarctic Circumpolar Current. Cold water begins to circle the Southern Ocean like a belt, locking Antarctica into a deep freeze. That current is a planetary heartbeat, a chill pulse that echoes all the way to your little branch. The Earth is exhaling warmth and inhaling ice. Back in your forest, the signs multiply. The nights stretch longer. The dawns are mistier. Your favorite fruit trees bloom late or not at all. The insects you snack on have grown sluggish or disappeared entirely. And your troop, once a noisy, playful bunch, has grown quiet. Their fur thins. Their ribs show. One by one, the oldest stop keeping up. One day, a mother clings to her lifeless infant longer than you can understand, rocking it gently on a bare branch. This isn't a predator's attack. There are no fangs or claws. The danger here doesn't chase you. It starves you. This is extinction by attrition, and it's terrifying. The green canopy that once shielded you begins to thin. You can see sky where once there was only shade. The trees, once tall and crowded with swinging life, are dying, shrinking, becoming patchy. Some fall over, their roots exposed to the unfamiliar wind. A new color enters your world. Brown. Dry, dusty brown. And then comes the worst part. You must climb down. You, a creature made for life above ground, where danger is visible and can be escaped with a quick leap, now find yourself scrambling over unfamiliar, unforgiving terrain. The soil is cracked. The grass cuts your feet. The sounds are different, lower, distant. There's no rustle of leaves, no comforting echo of your troop in the canopy. Just space. Open, flat, silent space. And that's when you feel it. The gaze. Something is watching. You don't know it yet, but you've entered the predator's arena. On the forest floor, you are slow, clumsy, soft. You aren't made to sprint or fight. And worst of all, you're visible. The moment you step from the last twisted tree root into the clearing, you understand what it means to be prey. Back in your shrinking patch of trees, you were king. Now you are meat. And still, the cold grows. The ice creeps down from the poles. Glaciers, great grinding behemoths of ancient snow, begin carving their slow paths across the continents. You've never seen them, but the wind carries their voice. A low, aching groan that bends trees and drives birds to migrate. Where once you had the luxury of choice, what fruit to eat, which branch to sleep on, now you have one mission: survive. Historians and paleoclimatologists still argue whether this sudden cooling event was slow and steady or full of abrupt collapses. But from your perspective, it doesn't matter. The change is real. It is now, and it is merciless. You huddle with your troop in a shallow cave, trembling, not from fear, though there is plenty of that, but from hunger, from the ache in your joints, from the loss of what was once familiar. Your world has changed in a way no brain, yet, is evolved to understand. The funny thing is, this isn't the worst it'll get. Not even close. This is just nature's opening act. But for you, in this moment, it's the edge of survival. You may not have words, but your eyes tell the story. The confusion, the loss, the animal terror of being forced from safety into the unknown. You won't remember this in the way we remember things. But somewhere, deep in the spiral of DNA that still coils in your cells, a whisper will linger. The time when warmth died, when the trees vanished, when you were forced to walk on the ground. The time when everything changed. And you probably won't survive it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to share where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Because now you run. Millions of years pass like the blink of a heavy eyelid. And you, well, you've changed. You're still not quite human, but you're getting closer. You've grown larger, more curious. Your eyes are a little more forward-facing now, your grip a little surer, your mind just a little brighter. You are proconsul, one of the earliest ancestors of apes and humans. You no longer cling to the canopy out of desperation. You move with purpose, with some confidence. You explore. But the world around you? It hasn't calmed down. The forests of old have retreated into patches. In their place rise the highlands of East Africa, jagged, shifting, breathing with steam. These aren't gentle hills. These are violent, newborn mountains forged from the clash of tectonic giants. The ground doesn't sit still anymore. It grumbles. It shakes beneath your feet. And the sky? The sky is never quite clean. A smear of grey often hangs on the horizon, a signal from the belly of the earth that it hasn't finished speaking. You wake each morning to the scent of sulfur. You don't know the word, of course, but the stink of rotten eggs makes your nose wrinkle and your stomach churn. Waterholes steam even when the air is cool. The soil is warm under your feet, sometimes too warm, sometimes boiling. And then it happens. It begins as a tremble, so minor you barely pause in your foraging. But then the trees around you start to sway, not with wind, but with dread. Birds scream and take off en masse. Your troop lets out high, anxious cries. You drop the half-chewed leaf in your mouth. You've felt tremors before, but this is different. A deep growl echoes from beneath your feet. The mountain, no, the very earth, clears its throat. And then it screams. The eruption is beyond anything your kind has ever known. A stratovolcano, a towering giant of rock and fire, shatters the sky. The sound alone knocks you to the ground. It's not a boom or a crash. It's a god's roar, rolling over the land like a living thing. You press yourself into the dirt, your tiny heart hammering in your chest, ears ringing. Then comes the ash. The sky, once pale blue, turns the color of burnt charcoal in seconds. Noon becomes midnight. You can't see your hand or paw in front of your face. Ash falls in soft, deadly curtains. It clings to your fur. It stings your eyes. It gets into your mouth and coats your tongue with the taste of old bones. And then the wall arrives. A pyroclastic flow, a term no one will invent for millions of years, sweeps across the land at highway speeds. But this isn't just ash. It's a tidal wave of superheated gas and pulverized rock, hot enough to melt flesh in seconds. You see it coming, a rolling, tumbling gray monster, consuming everything in its path. You run. Your troop is screaming now, but their cries are swallowed by the thunder. You leap over roots, duck under low branches, the world behind you crackling like paper in a fire. The flow is faster than you. It always is. The lucky ones are far from the epicenter. The unlucky, they don't leave bones. When you finally stop, gasping, trembling, your lungs aching from smoke, the world is silent. You look back. There is nothing but a gray plain, still steaming. The trees are gone, the river gone, even the animals gone. Everything has been flattened and baked. You don't cry. Your species doesn't do that. But you stare. You stare for a long time. The next day, you wake in a different world. The sky remains gray. Ash covers everything. Every leaf you touch crumbles. The water is thick with floating debris and chemical stink. The insects are gone, and so are the fruits. You dig for roots with blackened fingers. You chew bark. You gnaw on anything that has even a hint of moisture or calories. Then you find it. An antelope, curled like it simply lay down and died. Its eyes are open, clouded. Its fur is clean. It looks almost alive. But when you touch it, it's stiff, cold, preserved in the exact moment it inhaled the breath that killed it. Around it, more bodies. A whole herd, frozen in death. A death assemblage, though you don't know the term. just a horrifying sculpture of life arrested mid-stride. You don't touch them again, and still, the poison lingers. The rain burns your skin. The water makes your belly ache. Fluorine, leached from volcanic rock, seeps into the rivers and seeps into you. It doesn't kill right away. It rots your bones slowly. Your teeth loosen. Your limbs ache. Some members of your group begin limping, dragging themselves along the cracked earth until they disappear, one by one. And yet, something shifts. Over time, the ash cools. And with cooling comes something unexpected. Life. Tiny green shoots begin to poke through the gray. Plants you've never seen before. Rich, thick grasses. Fruits with flavors you don't recognize. For those who survive long enough, this becomes a new Eden. A deadly, fire-forged Eden, but fertile nonetheless. Historians still debate whether these early apes could truly comprehend death as we do, or if their fear was instinctual. But what they cannot debate is the volcano's effect on evolution. On you. The danger didn't end with the eruption. It lingered in your lungs, in your bones, in your stories, though they're told without words. And it's changed you. You are more cautious now, more attuned. You've learned to read the air, the tremble of the ground. You've learned that the earth itself can rise up and try to kill you. And it won't apologize afterward. And so, you move forward. Scarred, soot-covered, but alive. One of the few. You are a survivor on a scorched earth. The earth breathes in centuries, not seconds. The fires quiet. The forests return. The air, once metallic with ash and death, is sweet again. Rain falls gently now. The soil is dark, rich, forgiving. And you? You are no longer proconsul. You are something more. Taller, straighter. Your hands are clever. Your eyes sharp. Your brow no longer slopes as much. And your thoughts are like sparks. You don't just survive now. You wonder. You carve. You shape. You plan. You are Homo sapiens. And you are no longer alone in the trees or crawling the forest floor. You walk with a tribe. You wield fire. You know hunger, but you also know hope. It is 74,000 years ago. You live near the equator, in a world that has healed from its old wounds. You've learned the rhythm of the seasons. You follow the herds, harvest the wild yams, set traps for birds and hares. You sing at night, hum tunes around the fire. You believe, perhaps for the first time in your species' short history, that the worst is behind you. You are wrong. One evening, as the sun dips low and paints the sky in soft oranges, you see something strange on the horizon. A smear of darkness, thicker than any cloud you've known, creeps into the twilight. The birds fall silent. The air grows still, heavy. Your fire sputters and dims. And then, nothing. Not nothing as in peace. Nothing as in the absence of something essential. The stars don't appear. The moon is hidden. The next morning, the sun rises weak and pale, a sickly disk smudged behind a grey veil. This is not fog. This is not weather. This is the sky mourning its own collapse. You have just entered the volcanic winter of the Toba super-eruption. Though you'll never see the crater, half a world away in Sumatra, its violence touches every inch of the planet. Historians still argue whether the eruption caused a bottleneck in our species, whether it nearly wiped out humanity altogether. But standing here, wrapped in furs beside a fire that no longer warms you, you don't need the data. You live it. The sun disappears for weeks, months, perhaps longer. The days are never bright. The nights are too long. Snow falls in the tropics. Your skin, once warmed by a reliable sun, now splits with frost. Even the elders say they've never known anything like this. Food becomes a dream. The animals you hunt weaken, then vanish. The berries rot. The roots grow stunted and bitter. You chew on bark. You boil leather. Your tribe grows quiet, too tired to argue, too weak to sing. You wake each morning with your ribs sharper under your skin. Your hands tremble. You count the days by the notches in a stick, but you lose track. The sky never changes. You begin to wonder if this is how the world ends. Not with fire, but with dimness, with slow starvation, with silence. Around the shrinking fire, the stories change. You used to tell tales of clever hunters, spirits in the trees, the moon's laughter. But now, the stories are darker. They whisper of a sun that grew angry and abandoned its children, of a god swallowed by smoke, of a punishment for some forgotten sin. A young girl asks you, voice trembling, "Will the light ever come back?" You say yes, of course. You lie. One day, a member of your tribe simply doesn't wake up. No injury, no sickness. Just gone. Peaceful, as if they slipped into the cold and decided not to come back. You build no grave. There is no energy for ritual. You place a stone over the body and move on. It is a global collapse. Around the earth, the same story plays out. Tribes dwindle. Some vanish entirely. The animals die in droves. Forests turn brittle and black. There are fewer fires, fewer songs, fewer footsteps in the snow. Your world is shrinking. And yet, somehow unbelievably, impossibly, you endure. Not because you are strong, but because you are together. You share. You cling. You huddle around the final embers, passing gnawed bones and bitter roots from hand to hand. Your kind survives not on brute strength, but on kindness, on cooperation. You carry the weak, you comfort the dying. You teach the children what little you remember. The darkness lasts for years, but then, one day, the light shifts. The grey veil thins. The sun, still pale and wounded, pushes through for a moment, just long enough to cast a faint shadow on the dirt. Someone laughs. A real, full-bodied laugh. A sound you haven't heard in months. It echoes strangely in the stillness. But it feels like a spell breaking. The next day, the sun returns again. Brighter, warmer, and though you dare not say it, hope returns with it. Over time, the snow recedes. The animals return, slow and cautious. The trees bloom again. The world feels reborn. But it is not the same. You are not the same. There are fewer of you now. Whole clans gone. Whole languages forgotten. The world is quieter. But you survived. Scarred, yes, hollowed out but breathing. Historians still debate how close we came to extinction during the Toba event. Some believe we were reduced to a few thousand breeding individuals, a near death for our entire species. Others say we weathered it better than we think. But if you were there, living in a smoky twilight where the sun had abandoned the sky, you wouldn't feel like a survivor. You'd feel like the last of your kind. And you probably wouldn't survive this either. The sun has come back, but it doesn't feel warm just yet. Not truly. You've survived the longest winter of your species' memory, but that doesn't mean you're safe. In fact, now that the world is bright again, something new awakens with it. Eyes. You don't see them, not at first, but you feel them. They're watching you. You're on the African savanna now. It stretches for miles in all directions, a golden sea of grass, broken by rocky outcrops and thorny trees. You walk upright, permanently now, your arms free to carry things, your head high above the tall grass. It seems like an evolutionary win, doesn't it? Until you realize it also makes you stand out. You're visible, noticeable, delicious. This is not the world of stories anymore. This is the world of teeth. You approach a waterhole cautiously, your sharp eyes sweeping the banks. Your people are thirsty. Your throat is dry from the dust kicked up by buffalo herds. But you know better than to rush forward. Because in this particular patch of water, murky, still, too quiet, lurks something ancient, something huge, a giant crocodile. Crocodilus Thorbjarnarsoni. It can grow longer than your canoe, with jaws like a bear trap and a temperament worse than a wet cat. You bend to scoop up water in a shell bowl, and for one heart-stopping second, the surface ripples in the wrong direction. Then it explodes, a spray of brown water, a body gone in a flash. The snap of jaws loud enough to make your bones vibrate. You scream instinctively and stumble backward, dropping your bowl, slipping in the mud. The crocodile disappears just as quickly as it came, dragging something, or someone, beneath the surface. The pool goes quiet again. Blood swirls slowly through the reeds like watercolor. You thought the cold was the greatest danger. Now the real game begins. Every part of the savannah is trying to kill you. You've traded one disaster, the volcano, the winter, the famine, for a dozen new ones with claws, beaks, and an excellent sense of smell. Even the sky is watching. High above, circling silently on a column of warm air, is a crowned eagle. Harmless to you now, unless you're very young or very unlucky. But once, it wasn't. You know the stories. You've seen the tiny graves. Your elders speak of the child who was snatched from the cliff edge, the way the wind carried their scream too fast to chase. Scientists today point to the Tong child, a 2.8 million-year-old fossil skull of a human ancestor, with twin puncture marks in its eye sockets, the calling card of a raptor's talons. It's not just dramatic storytelling. It's a fact burned into bone. The sky itself once hunted you. And then there's the grass. Tall, dry, whispering, hiding things. You never walk through it alone, not unless you're reckless or desperate. Because among those yellow blades lurk creatures that seem built from nightmares. The saber-toothed cat Machairodus, with its long, dagger-like canines and eyes that can follow your every twitch. Or the giant hyena Pachyrhikuta, bigger than a lion, with jaws that could crunch bone like popcorn. They're not the predators of today. They're the boss level, the final exam. And here's the real twist. They don't even want you. Not really. You're not their primary prey, but you're slow, you're loud, you're distracted, you're an opportunity. That limp you've been ignoring, fatal. That moment you wander too far from camp to relieve yourself behind a bush, you're last. And so you adapt. Fear becomes a tool, a whetstone for the mind. You post sentries, watchers who climb trees and call out with whistles if anything moves wrong. You start traveling in tighter formations. Your tools, once crude, now gain edges. You don't just crack bones open for marrow. You use those bones to sharpen sticks. Spears emerge, stone tips, traps baited with rotten meat. You learn to hunt, yes, but also to not be hunted. Your eyes, already good, become excellent. Your ears become attuned to the subtle cues, the way birds fall silent, the whisper of grass in the wrong direction. You begin to tell the difference between a breeze and a stalk. Historians still argue whether predation truly pushed our brains to evolve this quickly. Some say it was social cooperation. Others blame the need for complex tools. But whatever the cause, you are getting smarter. And the world is noticing. You begin to tell stories, not just of what was, but of what might be. Warnings cloaked in myth. You carve beasts into bone, scratch symbols onto cave walls. You paint your fears in ochre and charcoal. Because knowing the danger is half the battle. But it isn't foolproof. One night, as the fire crackles and your tribe lies curled beneath fur and hide, something brushes the perimeter. The sentry calls out, soft but urgent. Shapes rise from slumber, grab spears. Eyes blink into the darkness. Nothing moves, then a low growl. 1 second later, everything is chaos. The saber-toothed lunges into the circle, fangs flashing in firelight. A scream. A spear plunges in, breaks. Another hunter falls. You grab a burning stick and thrust it forward, screaming not in language but in raw sound. The beast recoils, smoke rising from singed fur. It vanishes again into the night, leaving torn hide and blood behind. You survive. But you don't sleep. The danger here is personal, intimate. A set of eyes in the dark, a moment's inattention, a twitch in the grass. You have walked through volcanic hell, survived the sun's retreat. But here, under a moonlit sky with only sticks and fire between you and a world of monsters, you come to understand a deeper truth. You are not the top of the food chain. Not yet. The moon is full tonight, and you see your own breath in the air. Not because it's cold, but because the air is so dry, so thin, so utterly still. You walk with care now, not just from fear of predators, but because you rarely see anyone else out here. No more rival tribes, no more whoops echoing across the valley, just silence. You are Homo erectus, and the world is enormous and strangely empty. The horizon stretches forever, and most days you do not see another human soul. Not another firelight flickering in the distance, not another trail of footprints pressed into the dust. You scan the land constantly, not just for lions or hyenas now, but for proof that you're not the last. You once walked among many. Now you walk among ghosts. This is not a sudden catastrophe. There is no roaring volcano, no saber-toothed pounce. The danger here creeps. It whispers. It leaves you guessing. It is the silence that kills. Around 900,000 years ago, your kind, Homo erectus, the wanderer, The tool user, the fire bringer, suffers something so profound it leaves a scar in the very blueprint of your body. A population collapse so extreme that it threatens your species with extinction. The super bottleneck. For tens of thousands of years, humans disappear from the map like spilled ink drying under the sun. Populations thin out. Groups shrink. Entire bloodlines vanish. You walk the same paths your ancestors once trod. But now the trails are cold. The camps abandoned. The fire pits filled with dust. The bones, if you find any, are scattered and alone. You are not just running out of food, you're running out of each other. Why? Historians and climate scientists still debate it. Some blame a brutal climate swing, the mid-Pleistocene transition, a time when the Earth's rhythms changed. Glaciers advanced and retreated like drunk titans. And Africa, your ancestral homeland, flipped between flood and famine. One year, the land blooms, the next, it cracks apart. Mega droughts bake your rivers dry. Forests become scrub. The animals leave. The sky offers no rain. And when it finally does, it floods you out. You can't count on anything anymore. Not the trees, not the rains, not even your own kind. Your band, once several dozen strong, now huddles in a cave, fewer than your fingers and toes. The elders murmur that you haven't seen others in moons. You whisper to yourself that they're just farther west, or north, or somewhere else. But in your heart, you wonder if they're all gone. And then comes the true danger. Not the cold, not the drought, not the lion's teeth or the sting of a fever. It's the math. Your gene pool is shrinking. You don't understand genetics, but you feel it. The way children are born weaker, the way diseases seem harder to survive, the way births become rarer. Some die too young. Some are never born at all. Scientists today can see the evidence in our DNA. A moment when the entire breeding population of humanity may have dropped to as few as 1,280 individuals. That's not a tribe. That's a small village. That's an entire species reduced to a few family gatherings worth of people. You don't know it, but you are standing on the very edge of non-existence. And yet, you persist. Your nights are long, but the stars give you comfort. You've begun to watch them, haven't you? Patterns in the sky, shapes that repeat. You wonder what they mean. And somehow, that wondering keeps you going. You still carry fire. That flickering heart of orange warmth travels with you, from forest to plain to cave. You pass it on, and in doing so, pass on something else. The idea that survival is more than food. It's memory. It's story. You tell the children about the time of many fires, about the plains once filled with voices. You promise them, quietly trembling, that they are not the last. That out there, beyond the black hills or past the stony riverbeds, others still walk. Maybe you're right. One day you meet strangers. They look like you, but not exactly. Their skulls are broader, their tools more precise. They carry themselves with the weight of something new. They are Homo heidelbergensis, and they may be your descendants, or your cousins, or your competition. It's hard to say where you end and they begin. But one thing is certain. Something has emerged from the bottleneck. A new kind of human. Stronger, smarter, perhaps even more social. something that wouldn't have existed if the world hadn't nearly wiped the slate clean. Maybe this is the point of it all. Maybe danger is the crucible, and from it you're forged into something more. But you don't feel triumphant. Not yet. You still live one meal at a time, one fire at a time. You still fear the night, the hunger, the silence. And deep down, you carry the knowledge, burned into your marrow, that your kind was almost nothing more than a story the earth never finished telling. You survived. But only by a thread. The thread holds. But it is fraying. It is now 25,000 years ago, and you are modern in form. Homo sapiens, fully fledged, broad-brained, sharp-eyed. You speak in complex words, you sew with bone needles, and you dream in symbols. You are Cro-Magnon, a master of the hunt. And yet, you are cold, unbelievably cold. The ice has returned, and this time, it means business. You live in the grip of the last glacial maximum. The world has frozen over. Entire continents are buried beneath mountains of ice. A mile thick, some of them. If they were to melt, though you cannot imagine such a thing, they would drown the world in rising seas. But for now, they just sit there, silent and eternal, as if they've always been here. And they are coming for you. The wind howls constantly, tearing across the tundra like it's trying to strip your skin off. The sky is a bleak grey most days, heavy with snow that doesn't fall so much as whisper. You live in what's called a polar desert, and the irony is painful. There is no rain, no dew, no generous spring thaw. Just ice and wind, and the kind of silence that makes your bones ache. And yet, you endure. You live not in huts of straw or mud, but in domes of mammoth bone. Giant curved tusks lashed together with sinew and hide. These are not crude shelters. They are crafted with care, warmed with fire, lined with furs, stitched together by hands far more clever than they look. You've become a tailor of survival. Your clothes are layered, stitched for warmth and mobility. Fur, leather, woven grass. You know how to create garments with venting flaps and tied hoods. Your boots are padded with moss. Your gloves are shaped for the bow and the blade. And none of it is decoration. Every stitch is the difference between frostbite and a future. Because in this world, the cold isn't just cold. It is a predator. The real danger here isn't being hunted. It's being forgotten by your own body. Hypothermia doesn't kill with drama. It kills with drowsiness. First, your fingers go numb. Then your thoughts slow. Then you sleep. And that's the end. Quiet, gentle, deadly. You sleep close to others. Always. The body is the last fire. You eat whatever you can catch, and that means the largest animals to ever fear you. Mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, giant deer with antlers wider than a small house. These aren't prey in the usual sense. You don't chase them down. You trap, stalk, drive them toward cliffs or into snow pits. You coordinate in silence, fingers gesturing, eyes locked. A single mistake means starvation. But you don't always succeed. Your ribs press against your skin. Some nights the fire is weak, and you lie beneath hides and listen to your own stomach mutter. The baby in your camp whimpers all night. The old woman who once made the finest needles now sits staring at nothing, lips blue, hands idle. Sometimes you look up at the stars and wonder if the sky is a lid on a great box. If you're trapped here, crawling around inside it, scratching for warmth like a rodent in a snowbank. But then you remember what makes you different. You have imagination. You don't just react to the world, you try to reshape it. So, one day, you take a flickering lamp made of carved bone, fill it with tallow, and crawl into the earth. Not for shelter, for meaning. The cave yawns open like a mouth, swallowing you in shadow. You press through narrow passageways, damp and cold, until you reach the chamber. And there, on the wall, you paint. With fingers, with sticks, with breath through a hollow bone, you conjure life. You paint bison, charging, proud. Horses with streaked manes, lines and spirals that feel like songs. You place your hand against the wall and blow pigment around it, leaving behind the outline of your presence. I was here. Historians still debate why you do this. Was it ritual? Magic? Communication? No one knows for sure, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that you do it. Because in this frozen, colorless world, you make art. And art means something dangerous. It means hope. It means you believe there will be someone to see it. Someday. That your handprint will outlive the frost. That this animal you paint will run in someone else's dream. This is not a luxury. This is survival, because it tells the others, we are more than this cold. It tells yourself, you are more than a creature shivering in fur and gnawing frozen marrow. You are something that remembers, and something that hopes. Still, the toll is heavy. The human population of Ice Age Europe shrinks dramatically. Some regions become ghost lands. Others survive only by clinging to narrow bands of coastal refuge, where the winds are less cruel and the fish still swim. You don't know if you'll make it through the next year, or the next winter, but you do know that the fire is still burning, that the walls still echo with stories, that the children still listen, and so you press forward through the snow, one step then another, a little farther from extinction, a little closer to becoming someone who will one day wonder how their ancestors ever survived this long, cold nightmare. The answer? You survived because you remembered how to be human, even when it seemed impossible, and because the paint dried on the wall, and because the fire never quite went out. The ice melts, not all at once, but slowly, as if the world itself is exhaling after holding its breath for 100 lifetimes. Rivers swell with new life. Forests creep back across the plains. The air becomes thick with insects and bird song again. The mammoths and rhinos retreat to the edges of the map, and in their place come deer, wild cattle, boar. And you? You change too. No longer just a hunter scraping survival from the bones of giants. You settle. You build. You plant. You look at the land not as a temporary stop, but as something to possess. It is 10,000 years ago, and you are no longer just a wanderer. You are a member of a tribe with a name, a territory, a sense of us. But with us comes them. And suddenly, the most dangerous thing in your world is other people. You are walking along the shores of what we now call Lake Turkana in modern Kenya. The land is dry, but the lake is generous. It offers fish, clean water, reeds for building. Your group has lived here as long as anyone can remember. Children play near the shore. Women collect water. Men hunt antelope in the grass beyond the ridge. Then, one day, you find them. Not your people, not even what's left of them. Just bodies, scattered across the dry earth like broken dolls. You crouch beside one, a man with an obsidian bladelet still embedded in his skull. Another lies face down, hands bound behind his back. You roll over a woman, her stomach bloated, not from decay, but from pregnancy. The unborn child within her never saw the sun. There are no survivors here, no signs of a battle, just a massacre. The Nataruk site, as it will be called by archaeologists millennia from now, is one of the earliest known examples of organized human-on-human violence. Not a drunken brawl, not a misunderstanding over stolen food, but a systematic killing of men, women, children, everyone. And you realize the predator now has your face. The danger isn't hiding in the tall grass. It doesn't slither. It doesn't roar. It speaks your language. It wears your skin. And it wants what you have. Your fish, your water, your safety. Historians still argue whether war is natural to humans, or whether it arose only after we began to settle and hoard resources. Was this violence an anomaly, or a turning point? All you know is this: the danger is no longer out there. It is right across the river. You start to watch the horizon differently. Not just for prey, but for silhouettes. Not for movement in the grass, but for smoke from fires that weren't yours. You begin to sleep with a spear by your side. You start to build your huts closer together. You train your children to run at the first sound of shouting. And you learn something else: how to hurt back. Your spears are sharper now. You don't just use them to hunt. You learn to hide behind trees, to ambush from shadows. You understand the logic of fear. If you strike first, maybe they'll never come back. It's not quite war. Not yet. But it is something raw, intimate, and terribly human. You develop strategies. One group distracts, another circles behind. You move silently at night, stalking other humans the way you once stalked mammoths. You raid. You burn. You take what you need. And always you justify it. They would have done the same. They're not like us. They smell different. Speak differently. Worship the wrong gods. You do it for your children, for your group, for your survival. But when you kneel beside another corpse, another woman, another child, you feel the weight of what's changed and what hasn't. Because somewhere, deep in your brain, the old fear still lingers. The one from the crocodile-infested waterhole, from the saber-toothed night. The fear that safety is a lie, that the moment you believe you're safe is the moment you're not. And now, that fear has a new shape. The sharpened obsidian in someone else's hand. The world is greener, yes. There are no glaciers crushing your path, no volcanic ash choking the sky. But somehow the danger has become more personal. It's not the planet trying to kill you anymore. It's your neighbor. You build borders now, not just physical, but mental. Who is us? Who is them? Where does your land end and theirs begin? How do you decide who gets to drink from the stream? The answers vary. Sometimes you trade, share a fire, laugh over shared meat. Other times you sharpen your knives and wait for nightfall. This is not yet the kind of war that will level cities or write itself into history books. But it is perhaps more terrifying in its simplicity. Because when you see the eyes of the man charging toward you with a club, he's not a faceless soldier. He's someone who, under different stars, might have been your cousin. You survive, again. But the rules of survival have changed. Now it's not just about food or warmth or shelter. Now it's about knowing who might betray you, and whether you'll have to strike first. You've become quite good at surviving. You've outlasted ice ages and predators, famines and fires, and now you live in something that finally feels like civilization. You are no longer a nomad, nor just a villager. You are a person with a home, a schedule, a field to tend, or a shop to open. You wake up knowing what season it is, what day it is, what should be blooming or ripening or trading in the market. It is the year 536 AD, and for once, you think you understand the world, which is exactly why this next part is so terrifying. It begins quietly, like most disasters do. In March, there's something wrong with the sun. It rises, but it's dim, weak, as if it's hiding behind a veil. You squint. You wait. You expect the haze to burn off. It doesn't. Days pass. Then weeks. The light stays sickly and blue. The shadows are faint. Your crops, confused by the dimness, pause in their growth. Some never sprout at all. Flowers bloom too early, then wither. Bees vanish. People start talking. They call it a fog, but it doesn't behave like fog. It doesn't roll or drift. It just hangs, like a bad thought you can't shake. And it's everywhere, from Ireland to China, from the North Sea to the deserts of Arabia. Historians today call this the Dust Veil event. The best guess? A massive volcanic eruption somewhere in the tropics, perhaps in Central America or Indonesia. So massive, it hurled ash and sulfur into the stratosphere, forming a layer that blocked sunlight worldwide. But you don't know that. You just know the world has gone wrong. In Scandinavia, where you herd sheep and grow barley, summer never comes. By July, the ground is still frozen in patches. Snow falls again in August. Your neighbors whisper that the gods are punishing you. You pray harder, offer more sacrifices, but nothing changes. Your barley rots before it can ripen. Your sheep miscarry. Your children cry at night with bellies that feel like hollow drums. You try to bake bread from bark. You grind up roots, weeds, anything vaguely edible. But the taste is bitter, the texture like sand. Your teeth loosen from malnutrition. Your joints ache from scurvy. Your vision blurs. And still, the sun refuses to shine. The famines begin, and with famine comes fear. Food becomes currency. Friendships unravel over half a loaf. Men who once shared meals now guard their storage pits with knives. Villages close their gates. Travelers are turned away. People die with their arms around empty baskets. And just when you think it can't get worse, it does. Chroniclers like Procopius in Constantinople write of a sun that shines like the moon for over a year, of summers with no heat, of a world plunged into a pale, unending dusk. In China, snow falls in June. In Mesoamerica, the rains stop altogether. And in your town, people begin to disappear. Some vanish into the forest, hoping to find game or start over. Others are found in the morning, stiff with hunger, curled beneath empty fire pits. There are rumors of people boiling leather boots, chewing belts, of mothers giving the last crumbs to children and laying down beside them. You don't want to believe it, but you do, because you've considered it too. Civilization falters. Markets close, clerics die, kings become shadows, entire towns empty. Those who survive often do so in ways they never speak of again. You would think that would be the end of it, but it's only the beginning. Because as your body grows weaker, another enemy is coming. One you can't see, one that will ride into your land behind this long, strange night. Plague. The plague of Justinian. Carried by rats, by fleas, by ships from Egypt, is on the horizon. It will arrive soon, taking advantage of your weakened immune system, your hunger-softened defenses. It will sweep across the Byzantine Empire and beyond, killing millions. Historians still call 536 the worst year to be alive. Not because of a single event, but because it was the start of a chain reaction. A domino fall of climate collapse, food failure, disease, and war. A slow-motion apocalypse. And the worst part? No one can explain it. You search for meaning, but none appears. No comet streaks overhead. No divine vision offers comfort. No prophecy makes sense of it all. There is just the cold, the dim, the hunger, the fear. So you do what you've always done. You endure. You bundle tighter in your furs. You dig deeper for roots. You make soup from bones and stories. You hum lullabies that feel too hollow, too fragile, but you hum them anyway. You listen to the wind and pretend it sounds like spring. And slowly, the veil lifts. Not with trumpets or triumph, but with caution. The sun returns, yellow and uncertain. The days grow longer again. A sprout appears where none should have. A baby is born healthy. But you are not the same. The danger changed you. You've seen the natural order break. You've lived through a time when time itself seemed to falter, when the rhythm of days collapsed into an endless, aching twilight. And now, every sunrise feels like a miracle you don't quite trust. Because deep down, you know the truth. It could happen again. The veil has lifted. The sun, though wary, shines again. Civilizations breathe deeply, shake off the dust, and rebuild. Trade resumes. Languages blossom. Books are copied. Faiths deepen. But danger, true danger, rarely vanishes. It simply changes its costume. Now, instead of the earth opening beneath your feet, or the sky turning black with ash, it arrives on horseback. Fast, organized, and utterly unstoppable. You live in a great walled city now. Maybe it's Samarkand, with its blue-tiled mosques and bustling bazaars. Or Baghdad, humming with scholars and spice traders. Or Kiev, a rising city of stone and wood near the great rivers of the north. You feel safe. Your city walls are tall, your militia trained. You've never seen a true war. Only skirmishes, traders bickering, a thief chased through the alleys, a scuffle in the market square. Then you hear the rumors. They come slowly at first. Whispers carried by merchants from far to the east. Towns vanishing overnight, armies that move like smoke. Leaders who bow not to kings, but to a single man. Genghis Khan. You laugh at first. A horseman from the steppe, no matter how brutal, can't possibly threaten an empire. You have walls. You have laws. You have order. Then they arrive. Not a disorganized rabble, as you imagined. No wild-eyed, howling barbarians, but a disciplined, precise, terrifying force. Columns of cavalry, moving with eerie silence, Siege engineers hauling towers, ladders, catapults. They know your language. They know your defenses. They've mapped your weaknesses. They begin the siege not with arrows, but with fear. They catapult heads over the walls, not just of soldiers, but of civilians, friends, traders, priests. The air smells of rot and smoke. You hear stories that they've used plague corpses as weapons, biological warfare centuries before anyone had a word for it. You can't sleep. The drums outside never stop. Neither do the screams. Then, one morning, you wake to the crack of splitting stone. They're inside. Walls crumble under pressure you didn't know could exist. The gates, once so proud, are now splinters. Your defenders, trained but few, are overwhelmed. The cavalry pours in like a flood. But it isn't chaos. It's surgical. You try to hide. In a cellar, behind barrels, under a rug. But the Mongols don't just conquer. They erase. Your city is burned systematically. Libraries reduced to cinders. Canals smashed. Wells filled with the bodies of the dead. The irrigation systems your people spent generations building? Gone in a single afternoon. The orchard your grandfather planted? Trampled beneath hooves. The death toll isn't just numbers. It's everything you've ever known. Historians estimate the Mongol conquests may have reduced the global population by as much as 11%. That's not a typo. 1 in 10 human beings on Earth may have died in the wake of their expansion. They were a machine of war, a blueprint of terror. And if you're hearing hoofbeats in the distance, you're already too late. And yet, they weren't monsters. Not in the simple sense. They valued knowledge, recruited engineers, sent envoys, practiced religious tolerance. The postal system they created spanned continents. But if you resisted, if your city didn't surrender, obliteration. So what do? You kneel, you hand over your city keys, you bow before a general with sharp eyes and a calm voice. And you wait, breath held, for the judgment. Sometimes mercy comes, sometimes not. Even if you survive, the danger lingers. Not just in your burned streets, but in your mind. Because now you know the truth. Even the highest walls cannot stop a force with better maps, faster horses, and no fear of death. Historians still debate whether the Mongols brought more progress or destruction. Did they unify the Silk Road or scorch it clean? Were they enlightened rulers or executioners with good logistics? All you know is this: the world is smaller now. The edges have come crashing in. You hear the stories from the West, of cities that vanished in a day, of rivers that ran red, of skull pyramids stacked like warnings. You hear the stories from the East, of peace under new laws, trade routes that stretch across deserts, temples that welcome all faiths. And you wonder, are we being destroyed or remade? You don't have time to find out, because the hooves are already thundering toward the next city, and your walls are still smoking. The world settles again. The Mongols retreat or assimilate. Trade resumes along the Silk Road. Cities rebuild with new blueprints, new rulers, and new scars. You are now a merchant, or perhaps a sailor. You work in a bustling port, Constantinople, Venice, Genoa. You carry silk, grain, spices, and whispers. It's the mid-14th century. Business is booming. But so is something else. The ships have changed lately. Fewer flags, more secrecy. Sailors disembark with sunken eyes, sallow skin, open sores. One drags himself to the dock and collapses, mumbling in a language no one understands. You think, just another poor soul struck by exhaustion or drink. But the next day the first bodies appear. Not just one. Dozens. You've seen fevers before. Malaria, dysentery, the usual suspects of crowded cities and hot summers. But this is something different. It burns hotter, kills faster, spreads wider. It's not the devil you know. It's the Black Death. You are in a European port city when it arrives. You hear the bells first. Church bells, funeral bells, all ringing at once. Then the carts begin to appear. Wooden, rickety, rolling slowly through the streets with a heavy, unmistakable sound. The thump of bodies piled without care, wrapped in linen. Or not. And the buboes, those swollen, blackened lymph nodes in the groin, under the arms, on the neck. They are the telltale signature. Hot to the touch, pulsing with poison. Death follows within days. Sometimes hours. You try not to panic. You clean your hands. You pray. You burn incense. Some say the air itself is poisoned, a miasma seeping from the earth or sent by God as punishment. But deep inside those buboes, the truth is microscopic. Yersinia pestis, a bacterium that lives in fleas, which live on rats, which live on ships. Rats that have already scurried off the galleys and into your granaries, your homes, your beds. You try to avoid the sick, but the air smells strange now. You chew herbs. You avoid baths. You carry packets of flowers or sweet-smelling cloths pressed to your nose. Your doctor wears a bird-like mask, filled with dried petals. He might as well wear a skull. Historians still debate how exactly the plague spread so rapidly. Was it primarily fleas? Was it airborne too? Was it even multiple strains colliding? The science doesn't help you, because either way, people are dying. Everywhere, it feels like a tide of death that cannot be stopped. And still, many don't believe it's real. At first, they try to carry on. Trade, gamble, laugh. But denial dries up faster than hope. One morning, you find a friend slumped over his stall, unmoving. That night, you wake to the sound of coughing in the next room. The next day, your neighbor boards up his windows and refuses to speak through the cracks. And then you get the fever. Your head feels swollen, your skin flushes, your limbs tremble. You try to act normal, but your legs won't carry you. A pain starts in your side and spreads like fire through your chest. You vomit bile. Your skin turns blotchy. You shake. You know what's happening. Everyone knows by now. But there is no cure, so you lie in your bed, sweating through straw, while your friends argue outside about whether to remove your body before you've died. It's not just the speed. It's the silence afterward. Streets that once rang with children's laughter, horse hooves, and market calls now echo with only the wind. Whole neighborhoods are boarded up. Entire families vanish. Cats roam empty streets. Dogs gnaw at the edges of carts, still heavy with the dead. Some people flee, carrying the disease with them. Some retreat into the hills. Some party like the world is ending. Others flagellate themselves in the streets, believing their suffering will appease divine wrath. The Pope blesses rivers. Cities burn incense. Quarantines are invented, not that they help much. You're not just afraid of dying. You're afraid of what people will become before they die. Priests stop giving last rites. Doctors flee towns. Parents abandon children. Graves go unmarked, mass pits dug with long poles to push the bodies in from a distance. And beneath all this, the fear simmers that this is it, that the sun will rise over empty fields, that the human experiment is over. At its peak, the plague may have killed between 1/3 and 1/2 of Europe's population, not in a century, in a few short years. And then it stops. Not because it was beaten, because it ran out of fuel. You emerge from your home, if you're lucky enough to have one left, and see a changed world. The silence is louder now. Fields are untended. Cities feel hollow. Coins change hands less often. Even the rats seem unsure what to do next. You're alive. But you've learned that life is not the same as safety. You now carry a new kind of knowledge. That danger doesn't need a face, or a roar, or a reason. Sometimes it's invisible. Sometimes it's already inside you. And worst of all, sometimes it arrives on a ship. With no warning. The plague doesn't leave. Not really. It becomes a new rhythm beneath everything. A presence in the background. The way your fingers check your throat in the morning. Your eyes scan the faces of strangers in the market. The way a single cough can empty a room. The Great Death has rewritten your world. You live in a city. What's left of it? The bells still toll, though not as often. The carts still creak, but the bodies are fewer now. There are days, even, when laughter dares to return. A child plays. A song echoes down an alley. You smile, and then someone collapses in the street. It's back. Maybe it never left. You don't even ask where it came from this time. Genoa again? Marseille? The rats don't care about borders, and neither do the fleas. This is your new normal. A cycle of death, pause, and death again. Abandonment becomes part of your culture. Neighbors nail their doors shut. Priests refuse to enter homes. Doctors disappear. No one touches anyone. Even love becomes dangerous. A child shows symptoms? The mother turns away. A husband coughs in his sleep. The wife sleeps outside, alone in the garden. You don't want to betray the ones you care about. But the deeper betrayal, it seems, would be to bring them with you. So you survive, and you do it alone. The old rules break down. Fields go unplowed. Grain rots in the barn. There aren't enough living to harvest the land. And so, famine returns, as if summoned by death's long shadow. Money means nothing. The rich die just like the poor. Nobles are buried beside beggars. The hierarchy crumbles. Your landlord is dead. His children too. His estate lies empty, the gate hanging open in the wind. You walk past it and don't look back. You used to know who you were. A cobbler, a scribe, a weaver. Now you're a survivor, nothing more, nothing less. The death bells ring again. They never really stopped. And you begin to wonder, how many people are left? You count faces in the square. Where once there were crowds, now only a handful. Half of the shops are shuttered. Most homes have no smoke rising from their chimneys. In some villages, the only sign of life is a cat winding through the ruins. Your dreams are haunted by coughing. The plague carts still roll, but now they're more efficient. You recognize the men who push them. They wear red crosses. They don't speak. They don't pause. They don't pray. They've stopped seeing people. They just see weight. But the worst part isn't the disease, or the smell, or the rot. It's what it does to your mind. You start to look at people differently, with suspicion, with distance, A sneeze becomes a death sentence. A fever is a curse. Children stop playing together. Elders are left behind. Compassion becomes a liability. And into that vacuum of empathy pours something else. And when fear overflows, it looks for somewhere to go. You see it in the riots, the burning, the shouts in the night, the mobs that form outside the homes of foreigners, of the poor, of the different. You hear the rumors, that the Jews poisoned the wells, that witches summoned the sickness, that God is punishing all of you, but especially them. Massacres follow, whole communities wiped out not by plague, but by panic. People driven from homes, tortured, burned, in the name of purification, in the name of cleansing, in the name of fear. And yet, for all your desperation, you still seek reason. You still seek something to hold on to. Some people take to the roads in procession, flagellants they call themselves, marching through towns in bloodied rags, whipping their own backs, chanting hymns, hoping that suffering will earn them mercy. But mercy doesn't come. The plague does not care about your rituals, and when the flagellants themselves begin to die, they are buried like everyone else. Quietly, quickly, eventually, finally. The wave passes. The carts stop rolling. The bells toll less often. People begin to speak again in full voices. Markets reopen, tentatively. Fields are cleared. Babies are born. But the world is changed. 1/3, maybe half, gone. Some villages never come back. Some surnames die with the last breath of a child in a fevered cot. And the survivors? They are not who they were. You feel like a ghost walking through your own life. The church is quieter. The festivals are shorter. Even the colors people wear seem dimmer, as if no one dares to wear joy on their skin anymore. Historians today call it a demographic collapse, but you just call it loss. Still, you adapt. Wages rise. There are fewer workers now. The peasants push back against the nobles. A new kind of person begins to rise, one with a little more freedom, a little more power. The foundations of serfdom crack. And somewhere in all this, quietly, the future begins. But for now, you don't care about the Renaissance. You just care about living and not coughing. And maybe if the wind is kind and the sun warm enough, sitting under a tree and remembering a time when you didn't know what plague smelled like. Because it is not just the body that needs healing, it is the soul. And yours is still trembling. The world, once emptied, begins to fill again. Fields are plowed. Trade resumes. Towns grow, first slowly, then with startling speed. After all that death, there is room now. Land to be claimed. Markets to be rebuilt. Fortunes to be made. And curiosity returns. You live in a time of sales now, not just soil. It is the 16th century, and the world has edges again. Edges people are desperate to cross. They've heard of gold, of new lands, of seas with no end. So they build ships and gamble their lives against the horizon. You may be one of them, a sailor, standing on the deck of a wooden caravel, ropes creaking, canvas snapping in the wind. The sea is green-gray, endless. You've never been out of sight of land before. Now, there's nothing but water in all directions, and you're starting to wonder if this was a mistake. Storms hammer the ship for days. Lightning dances across the sky like a god playing dice. The deck tilts so violently you sleep tied to the mast. Salt stings your eyes, your lips, your feet. You drink water that smells faintly of rot. You chew on hard biscuits filled with weevils and pretend they're nuts. Your gums bleed. Your joints ache. You don't know it, but you have scurvy, just like half the crew. It's not the sea that's killing you. It's your own body, dissolving without citrus. Still, land eventually rises from the mist. A dark line on the horizon. It looks like salvation. But for others, it is the end. You see it first through the eyes of a sailor. But now, shift. You are on the shore. The air smells of salt and palm and damp earth. You are a member of a thriving community in the Caribbean, or Mexico, or the Yucatan. Your ancestors built great stone cities. You plant maize, raise children, honor your gods with songs and color and flame. You are strong. You are proud. Then one morning, you see floating mountains on the sea. They approach slowly, impossibly. Wooden beasts with trees rising from their backs. Men pour out, pale-skinned, bearded, armored. They carry fire in their hands, thunder on their hips. But that is not the real danger. The real danger rides ahead of them. Invisible, relentless, unstoppable. Smallpox. It arrives before their horses have cooled, before their weapon tins have been drawn. One touch, one breath, one handshake. That's all it takes. The fever comes first, then the pain, then the rash. Angry red blisters that bubble and scab and leave your skin like a cracked mosaic. If you're lucky, you die quickly. If not, you linger. Eyes swollen shut. Skin sloughing. Breath like wet wood burning. There are no prayers for this. No rituals that work. You watch your family fall. Your neighbors vanish. The healers give up. The children die first. And the invaders, they don't understand it either. Some of them die too. But not most. Because they've already had it. They've already survived it. You have no chance. The plague of your people doesn't wear robes or carry a scythe. It wears no face. It is breath. It is blankets. It is every handshake, every cough, every bead of sweat on a shared drum or bowl. And it doesn't stop with smallpox, measles, typhus, influenza, tuberculosis. They come in waves, and each one is worse than the last. You watch your cities, so full of order and color, go silent. You watch fields go fallow, temples crumble, stories vanish mid-sentence. And the conquerors? They think they have won a war. They don't realize they're walking over bones that haven't even cooled yet. Historians call it the Great Dying, and it is perhaps the single greatest loss of human life in such a short time. Some estimates say that over 90% of the indigenous population of the Americas perished within a century. Not from war, from germs. You didn't lose a battle. You never had a chance to fight. And the world forgets you almost immediately. Maps are redrawn, cities renamed, statues raised to those who brought the plague. The stories told now are about conquest, heroism, divine destiny. Not about the coughing, not about the mass graves, not about the silence where music used to be. You, the sailor, continue on. You trade, you claim, you build. You write in your journal about how the land was empty, how the forests stretched forever, how it felt like Eden, because you don't see the ash, and you don't hear the echoes. The Native American? He remains in the wind, in the river, in the stories that no longer have tellers, in the medicine bundle buried beneath the tree, in the child who still dreams of jaguars. This wasn't war, this was erasure, and it was one of the most dangerous times to be alive. Not because of what people did, but because of what they brought, and what they didn't even know they carried. You live in Central Europe now, not on a shoreline or in a jungle clearing, but in a forested valley, beneath a grey sky that always seems ready to rain. The year is 1618. You are a peasant. Your house is made of timber and thatch. Your meals are simple: barley porridge, cabbage, maybe cheese if the goats cooperated. You pay your taxes to one lord, sometimes another. You try to keep your head down, but something is coming. Something big. It doesn't come like the plague or the sea. It comes in sermons, in whispers from priests, in royal decrees, in arguments at the tavern that turn too quiet, too fast. The kind of silence that means someone might not make it home tonight. The war is here. The 30 Years' War. It starts, supposedly, with religion. A fight over who gets to pray to whom, how, and where. Catholic versus Protestant. But soon, those labels start to blur. Politics bleed into faith. Faith into power, and power into fire. You don't care about any of it. Not really. You just want your crops to grow, your children to stop coughing. But the war doesn't care what you want. It comes to your village on horseback. Sometimes Catholic armies, sometimes Protestant, sometimes mercenaries who serve whoever pays best, or loots best. It doesn't matter who they are. They all do the same thing. They take your food, your livestock, your blankets, your daughters, your dignity. They say they're fighting for God. But you've never seen God on a muddy road, soaked in blood and ash, dragging a cart full of stolen bread. You've only seen soldiers. When they leave, the silence is worse than the noise. Houses burned, wells poisoned, trees felled, fields trampled, and bodies, not just warriors, but everyone, left where they fell. You bury who you can, but soon you stop bothering. You don't have the strength. You build a fence and hope the wolves are full. The danger now is not just being caught in a battle. The danger is living through it. Because war is no longer just clash and retreat. It is total. The 4 horsemen ride together now. War in your backyard, with steel and fire. Famine, when your grain is burned and your animals stolen. Pestilence, spread by rats in the wreckage, by filthy boots, by shared misery. Death, quiet, bloated, waiting. Historians estimate that in parts of Germany, over 60% of the population died during these years. Not on the battlefield, but in their homes, in their beds, in their churches. Your village changes hands so many times you stop asking who's in charge. You fly no flags. You keep no records. You dig a root cellar. You teach your children to hide when strangers approach, and you stop lighting candles at night. They can see the light, you know. You hear rumors of entire towns emptied, not by battle, but by starvation, cannibalism, parents abandoning infants on chapel steps, people pretending to be dead so soldiers will pass them by. Some call it madness. You call it survival. And worst of all, you stop trusting anyone. That neighbor who used to share your bread, he might report you. The priest? He might be on the wrong side of the war tomorrow. Your own cousin? Press-ganged into an army that razed your sister's farm. Even the sky turns against you. The weather grows erratic. Crops fail again and again. You try planting earlier, later. It doesn't matter. The ground is tired. The sky is spiteful. And you are fading. You dream of peace, but you don't remember what it looks like. Children grow up never knowing a year without smoke, without hunger, without fear. Historians still argue about the causes and consequences. Some say it was about religion, others say it was about empire. Some even claim it ushered in modern diplomacy. But for you, it was 30 years of hell. 30 years of burying your dead, of never unpacking your belongings, of listening for hooves on the wind. And when it's finally over, when treaties are signed in grand halls far from your burned village, you don't rejoice. You just try to plant again. You bury the sword your son carried. You boil the last of your salted cabbage. And you dare, for the first time in years, to look at the sky. Maybe the clouds will break. Maybe next year will be better. Maybe. The sword is rusting now. You've buried it beneath your threshold, not out of ceremony, but because you don't want to look at it anymore. Too many ghosts cling to its blade. You are no longer just a survivor of war. You are something else now. A citizen. A subject. A cog in a machine you can't quite see but can definitely feel. It is the 19th century. And the world is moving faster. Trains scream across the countryside, their black smoke streaking the sky. Telegraph wires hum with messages too fast to be real. Cities swell with people, too many people. You are packed into narrow alleys, tenements, factories. Coal dust cakes your teeth. Everything smells of iron and urgency. But the real danger now, it wears a suit. It writes in ledgers. It doesn't swing a sword or light a torch. It lets you starve politely. You are in Ireland. You are a tenant farmer. You rent the same plot your father did, and his father before him. The only thing that grows well here is potatoes. They feed your family, your neighbors, your entire village. And then, one spring, the leaves blacken, the stalks wilt, the roots turn to slime in your hands. The great hunger begins. Angorta Moor. It isn't just a bad harvest. It's a biological betrayal. Phytophthora infestans, a blight, spreads like wildfire. Every field, every sack, every buried stockpile. Rot. Wet, black, putrid, useless. You knock on doors, you beg, you go to church. And when none of that works, you try to boil grass. Your children cry at night, not from fear, but from the kind of hunger that no lullaby can soften. Their cheeks hollow, their ribs sharpen, their eyes grow too large. And still, the ships sail past your coast, full of grain, of cattle, of butter, headed to England. Because your famine isn't caused only by nature, it's caused by ideology. Laissez-faire economics, they call it. Free market. Invisible hand. Government officials refuse to interfere with trade. Let the market correct itself, they say, as your neighbors collapse in the fields. Food isn't scarce. It's just priced out of your reach. You watch ships filled with food leave your country while your family eats boiled nettles and clutches their bellies. 1 million people will die. Another million will flee across the Atlantic, packed into coffin ships, where disease claims the weakest before they even reach the New World. Historians still debate whether it was genocide or simply neglect, whether indifference can be as deadly as malice. You already know the answer. But just as the famine fades, another kind of hunger rises, a hunger for purity. You are in Cambodia now. It is the 1970s. The war in Vietnam bleeds across borders. A group calling themselves the Khmer Rouge takes power. They promise to remake the country, erase its corruption, its colonial scars, its inequality. They promise year zero, a fresh start. They empty the cities. You are a teacher, a doctor, a translator. You are everything they fear. You wear glasses. That's enough. You must read. Reading is dangerous. You are marched into the countryside, into the labor camps. You dig ditches. You harvest rice until your fingers bleed. You are forced to repeat slogans until your voice cracks. Sleep is a luxury. Oud is a rumor. Anyone who speaks out disappears. Anyone who remembers the old ways disappears. Anyone who once lived in a city, wrote a poem, whistled a French tune, disappears. And the fields? They are not only for rice, they are for bones. The killing fields stretch across Cambodia, shallow graves filled with bodies. Over 2 million dead, nearly a quarter of the population. Killed not by nature, not by war, but by utopia. By an idea. By the belief that suffering now would create paradise later. Historians still puzzle over how it happened so quickly, how neighbors turned on neighbors, how an entire country tried to erase itself. But if you live through it, you don't ask how. You ask if you're next. You don't speak above a whisper. You don't sing. You don't even look at the guards when they pass. You survive by disappearing without dying. But the weight of silence is a danger too, because it hollows you. It makes you afraid not just of others, but of yourself. You bury your memories with the same care as you once buried that rusted sword. You cover them in dirt, in routine, in years. You smile when told. You nod when asked. And still, part of you waits for someone to knock, for someone to point, for someone to decide that you're too smart, too old, too anything. Because you've learned something chilling. Danger doesn't always come with fangs or fire. Sometimes it comes with ideology, with charts, with plans, with perfect promises. And when it does, it doesn't just kill the body. It tries to erase the soul. You've survived fields of famine, ideologies that turned neighbors into executioners, empires that erased entire worlds without lifting a sword. And now, you wake up in the early 20th century. There are newspapers on every street corner, telegraphs clicking with distant news, steamships crisscrossing the globe. Everything feels faster, shinier, smarter. You walk with a spring in your step, because this is the modern age. Science is blooming. Cities glitter with electric light. There's talk of progress, of peace, of international cooperation. They say war is obsolete, too expensive, too old-fashioned, too human. But then one man dies. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, shot in Sarajevo, and the world, carefully stacked like a row of dominoes, begins to fall. You are a young man now, or perhaps a young woman, watching your brothers march off in crisp uniforms, singing songs about home. You're told the war will be short, noble, over by Christmas. But it is 1916, and you are in the trenches. You live in the dirt now. You sleep, eat, fight, and scream in a muddy scar across France. Or Belgium. Or somewhere that no longer has a name, only a map coordinate. You have not seen a tree in weeks. The ground is so torn by shells, it looks like the moon. Craters filled with water. Corpses that no one can reach. The danger here is constant. Above you, artillery screams. Each blast is a coin flip. Death, maiming, or just deafening terror. The shockwave slams into your chest like a hammer. The mud jumps with each impact. You flinch at thunder now. You always will. The machine guns rattle like angry gods. You've seen what they do. Whole waves of men cut down in seconds. You no longer go over the top. You climb into hell. You're told to advance. You do, because not going means a bullet from behind. And then comes the gas. Green clouds rolling low over the battlefield. At first it looks almost beautiful, like morning mist. But then your lungs seize. Your eyes burn. You claw at your mask, but it's too late. You fall, coughing foam, scratching at your own throat. And even if you live, you never breathe the same again. Historians still debate which invention changed war the most. Artillery, gas, machine guns. But the real answer is all of them together. This is not war as you knew it. This is slaughter, perfected. You lie awake in the trench, half submerged in water that never drains. Rats scurry over your chest. You feel them nibble your ears as you sleep. You don't stop them anymore. Lice burrow into your seams. Your skin peels from the damp. The stench is indescribable. Rotting flesh, blood, excrement, oil, the chemical tang of cordite. It clings to your nostrils long after you leave, if you leave. And even on days with no fighting, the danger never leaves. It's in the shell shock, the twitch in your hand, the scream that slips out without permission. You see friends rock themselves to sleep, whispering to dead brothers. Others go silent, eyes blank, souls gone. You are not a soldier anymore. You are an organism in a trench, a statistic. You write letters home, full of lies. It's not so bad. I'm keeping warm. The men are in good spirits. You draw little sketches of birds you haven't seen in years. You don't tell them about the man who hung himself in the dugout, or the one who couldn't stop screaming until someone finally pressed a hand to his throat and didn't let go. You hold on to memories like fire, your mother's bread, a walk in spring, the feel of dry socks. The war does end. Eventually, you walk home, slower now. You stare at clouds differently. You blink when people shout. They give you a medal, a pension, a handshake, and then they stop asking questions. You are supposed to move on, but you can't, because you've seen what humanity is capable of when given tools too powerful, too efficient. You've seen the line between man and meat blurred. You've watched an entire generation be shredded for a few yards of mud. And you know, deep in your bones, that it will happen again. Because the danger now isn't in the brutality, it's in the efficiency. You were promised glory. You were handed a shovel and told to dig your own grave. You live in a house with a white picket fence now. Or maybe it's an apartment with linoleum floors and a television that flickers in black and white. There's a fridge humming gently in the kitchen, and somewhere in a drawer you keep a map that shows the whole world, divided, color-coded, with two halves glaring at each other like wolves on opposite cliffs. It's the 1960s. You survived the war to end all wars, and then the one that followed it. But the danger hasn't gone away. It's just changed form. Now it lives in the air, in the hum of distant sirens, in the headlines, in the silence between phone calls. Now the danger isn't something you can see or touch or stab with a bayonet. It's in a briefcase, in a bunker, on a button. You live under the shadow of the mushroom cloud, the atomic bomb, the nuclear test, the Cold War. You don't fight with spears or muskets now. You fight with deterrence, with mutually assured destruction, with doctrines and drills and diplomatic tightropes strung between continents. Your enemies speak of peace while building enough firepower to vaporize the Earth 10 times over. And you? You go to school. You sit in a neat row with your classmates while a calm voice says, "Duck and cover." And you do. You crouch beneath a desk, arms over your head, as if a sheet of laminated plywood will save you from a thermonuclear firestorm. It won't. You build fallout shelters in your backyard, stock canned beans, practice evacuation drills. You stare at the night sky and wonder which star might blink out first. Cuban Missile Crisis. You remember the name. You remember the fear. You remember the way the world seemed to hold its breath for 13 days, the way people whispered in grocery lines, the way your parents said goodnight just a little too carefully. Historians still argue just how close the world came to ending in those 2 weeks. But you know how close it felt. Too close. And even when the missiles are rolled back, the ships turned around, the handshake given, nothing feels normal again. Because the danger didn't go away. It just stopped blinking at you. You watch public service announcements that show people calmly covering their eyes from a nuclear flash. You learn where your local shelter is. You test your radio. You wonder if your dog will make it. And you dream of fire. It's always fire, the kind that doesn't burn wood. It burns everything. You read about Hiroshima, about Nagasaki. You see photos they don't show to children. Shadows burned into walls, skin like melting wax. Water so poisoned that it reflects only silence. You are told those bombs saved lives, but they didn't feel like salvation to the people beneath them. The danger now isn't a saber-toothed cat in the grass. It's a man in a suit, a hand on a button, a code in a red envelope, a decision made in seconds, echoed forever. You live in the age of potential endings. And what's worse, you forget sometimes. You learn to live with the fear, to box it up, to let it fade into the wallpaper. The sirens still howl once a week, but no one jumps anymore. Your children draw mushroom clouds on their school papers. It's just normal. But normal doesn't mean safe. Because safety is a myth, a layer of paint over a very thin wall. And the cracks are always forming. In the news, a failed missile test. A plane that nearly launched a war by accident. A radar glitch that almost called in an attack. Fingers that trembled, but didn't press. And those are just the times you know about. Historians will later uncover just how many times the end nearly began. How many errors and close calls and panicked red phone calls passed between trembling hands in silent rooms. You think about this sometimes as you sip your coffee, as you mow your lawn, as you watch the launch of a new satellite. You live in a golden age, and in its shadow. The bomb doesn't fall, but it waits. You teach your kids to be polite, to wash their hands, to come home before dark. But deep down, you know, there is no curfew for the end of the world. Just a siren, And maybe not even that. You're here now. Right now. Breathing the air of the 21st century. Swiping through screens. Scrolling past headlines. Watching the world spin faster than it ever has. You carry in your pocket a device that holds more information than any human in history ever dreamed of. You live longer than your ancestors. You survive diseases that once killed kings. You drink water without fear of parasites. You've probably never faced a saber-toothed predator or watched your crops blacken overnight. Statistically speaking, you live in the safest era humans have ever known. So why does it still feel like something's wrong? Why, when you lie in bed at night and the room is quiet, does that ancient shiver still creep down your spine? It's because danger hasn't disappeared. It's just learned to wear subtler masks. Let's start with the oldest threat of all, the planet. Except this time, the danger isn't an asteroid or a volcanic eruption. It's us. The ice is melting again. Remember those mile-thick sheets from earlier? They're shrinking now. Sea levels are rising. Storms are angrier. Heat waves last longer. Droughts choke farmland. Floods swallow villages. You no longer wonder if the climate is changing. You wonder how bad it will get. Whether your children will have to wear air filters to school. Whether your city will still be above sea level. Whether the crops will keep growing. The difference now, you know it's your fault. You didn't mean to. But your cars, your factories, your choices, collectively, have pushed the Earth out of balance. Historians of the future may call this the age of acceleration, because everything is moving faster than you can think. Pandemics? You've had one. You might remember the masks, the daily death counts, the empty streets that felt like something from a dream, or a nightmare. But the real terror was in the spread. One cough in a market across the globe, and suddenly your town is on lockdown. Your parents are in danger. Your job is gone. Your reality rewritten overnight. Even now, the echoes linger, and it won't be the last. Because you live in a world where viruses move at the speed of jet fuel, where supply chains crack like brittle glass, where a single mutation in a protein can upend entire economies. And what about medicine? 100 years ago, a scrape on your knee might have killed you. Then antibiotics changed everything. Now, they're starting to fail. Antibiotic resistance is rising. There are already infections that shrug off every drug you throw at them. Superbugs, they're called. Not dramatic, just stubborn and deadly. You might live long enough to see a future where simple surgeries become life-threatening again. And you won't be able to say you weren't warned. Still, you persist. You go to work, you get coffee, you check the news. And that's where the newest danger lives. Not in the virus, or the drought, or the disease, but in your mind. Information warfare, misinformation, disinformation, deepfakes, bots, algorithms designed not to enlighten, but to enrage. You're bombarded with content, most of it true enough to believe, just false enough to divide. You don't know what to trust anymore, what to believe, who to vote for, who to fear. And when you can't tell what's real, everything starts to feel like danger. Historians still argue whether we've entered a post-truth world, or if it's just louder now. But you can feel it. That fatigue, that confusion, that suspicion that every headline is bait, every answer a trap. The truth is, the real threat isn't a single bomb or bullet or beast. It's the slow erosion of your ability to understand your own world. So, when was the most dangerous time to be alive? Was it when you were hunted by cats the size of cars? When volcanoes blackened the sky? When the plague crept into your home on the back of a flea? When you stood in a trench as the sky cracked open? Or is it now? When the danger doesn't come from nature, but from us? When the apocalypse doesn't need fire or ice, just apathy? The answer is messy, because danger has always been here. It just evolves as we do. The most dangerous time to be alive might be any time you think you're finally safe, because that's when you stop looking for the smoke, listening for the hoofbeats, checking the sky for storm clouds. But here's the truth that echoes across every era. You survived through every plague, every flood, every fire, every war. Someone made it through. Someone told the story. Someone painted the bison on the wall. Someone passed the spark forward. And now, that someone is you. So if your heart's still beating a little too fast, let's slow it down together. Breathe in, softly now. Let it fill your lungs like a quiet tide reaching the shore. Hold it just for a moment, and let it go. Let the danger fall away, like dust shaken from an old cloak. Because right now, in this moment, you're warm. You're safe. You've made it through the dark. The world outside can wait. You've walked through fire, famine, ice, and ash. You've stood on the edge of extinction more times than anyone should. And still, you're here. The last flicker of the last torch passed from hand to trembling hand, now resting in yours. Let that comfort you, because for all the catastrophes in history, humanity kept going. Not because it was easy, or fair, or simple, but because we learned, we adapted, we held on. Tonight, you don't have to fight anything. You can lay your weapons down. Let the world spin without you for a while. The wind outside might howl. The headlines might scream. But here, in this quiet room, there is only breath, only stillness, only sleep, waiting patiently just beyond the next blink. So close your eyes and let the story fade. The danger is behind you now. You're safe. You're safe. You're safe.